we are willing to, depending on what the level of need is, we are willing to allow artificial intelligence into our lives. Very few of us are willing to allow it to make the final decision. So I think that what we need to understand is that these things will be an input device. They should not be an output device. Allow them into our lives, filter them through this thing, our minds, our wisdom, filter them through what we think is required. Remember that we can think in ways that machines never will.
Global futurist, keynote speaker, strategic advisor, media commentator. It's a pretty long resume.
It's a long resume. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me, guys.
Yeah, it's great having you here, and really want to learn about what is a futurist. It sounds less futuristic and more relevant today. But the way we like to start the show is just to go over our week and talk about how has AI been an advantage this week for us, or where have we found points where it's a pain in the ass? Because if you look at the headlines, all these big tech companies will say, "Oh, it's the best. We've hit these benchmarks and this and this and this." Then when you sort of step in front of your computer and try to do a simple task, you sort of hit with all these roadblocks, and it's frustrating. So for me this week, over the last couple of months, I've been on a real big sort of hiatus from AI. It's been useless. I want it to be great, but it's just been useless. So funnily enough, and I don't know if this is something that everybody's going to be feeling at the moment, but I've actually gone back to basics. Like I've started drawing just with pencil and paper, and just started doing really analog things. And I think this is probably just the pendulum swinging the other way, where we've been pushing AI so hard for so long. It's like, that's okay. It's good. It could be great one day, but it's kind of fun to do it the other way, the slow way. So for me this week, it's just been a lot of drawing, sketching. And the ironic thing is I know that Midjourney can do what I've been trying to do over the course of a couple of weeks in seconds, but there's something satisfying about just like drawing, making a mistake. It's like, oh, fuck, I don't want it to look like that. All right, I'm going to have to try and work this. Then I show it to like a friend and they go, wow. Or I show it to my kid and he scribbles on it. I was like, okay, well, that's a part of it now. So I think
you're doing client work?
No, not at the moment. So I think it's the emotional journey. That's the fun part. It's, the ups and downs. It's like, oh, yeah, this is too hard. So that's where I've been out this week with AI. What about yourself, Grayson?
I've been using chat still to, Morris, I'm currently building out a website from a very flexible CMS, content management system. It's so flexible that it just doesn't have templates for things. You kind of got to build a page which then becomes your template, a news page or a content page or whatever it is. So it's had a lot of CSS issues, so the back file that sort of controls the site. So chat's been fantastic in actually building like little effects and things in code and stuff. Sometimes it does overcomplicate things. I found myself just simplifying them, but I still never trust it. And I think, Morris, you talk about this in one of your papers. Where's the responsibility kind of at? And I won't let it have responsibility when I'm not sure about the changes it's going to make to something, and in particular, in this case, the CSS. It's kind of, if you screw a CSS file up, you screw your whole site up really quickly. So chat was saying, do this and do that and code that out. And I was just like, yeah, no, I don't trust you, but I'll try the change. And it blew something out and that sort of thing. But, and I've just been watching this social media ban. I know, Ben, you've been missing in action a little bit on this one, but we've often been ahead of the curve, and I don't know if we've talked about the social media ban before it was even really being talked about. But I've been seeing kids on TikTok going, "Oh, I opened up my regular Instagram, flicked through it, and it banned me. So I just opened up my over 16-year-old account, and I've been fine." So I'm not sure how this ban's going. I'm sure it'd be good for the kids' mental health. But that's been the week. I just headed off to Hobart, did a bunch of whiskey tasting. and I had a look at where one of the biggest alcohol producers out of the UK is sending their capital, which is into a place called Greenbanks, and they do about 3 million litres of alcohol in terms of whiskey a year. So that was an excellent experience because I got to taste the 70% proof right through to the $500 bottle, which I kind of enjoyed. But it was interesting because the guy was sort of selling it to us. They sell it by the barrel. You can invest in it. So no sales pitch here. He was a very interesting guy, but he basically was like, the 500 bottle, you can only really get so much more out of the whiskey. So it's all marketing bullshit. Your $200 bottle is going to be as good as the 500. Maybe your up $100 bottle, and you're just baking it to a recipe. But their whole system was automated. So right from the feed, the barley or the corn or what you wanted to put into it, basically went up a corkscrew, straight in, got mulched up, all machine done, all computer monitored. So right to the moment it drips out the other end in a reduced form. Pretty amazing to see. And I went to Nant, which was pretty cool, which is distillery in Bothwell, Tasmania. Shout out to those guys because they do a great little mini tour. It's a convict area. There's a bit of history to the place. So that was away from AI this week, Ben. Morris, what are your processes in life around AI? Do you use anything daily or?
I use it all the time. I'm fascinated to go back a couple of steps if I can. I mean, answer your question for you, but I want to go back a couple of steps. The thing that's common in what both of you have just said is your belief in what something should do or should have or is worth. And it's not about you two, it's about us as humans. I know nothing about whiskey. It means nothing to me. I mean, it really is absolutely useless in my hands and in my throat as well. But there's a belief that a $500 bottle or a $1,000 bottle is better than a $1 bottle or something you buy in the cheap servo or whatever. There most probably is. So please, all those sommeliers and others, shout at me and scream. But
and me.
there is an absolute belief in this, and the same with your use of AI, Ben. Not you. I'm picking you because you made the comment, but we're all the same. That we believe that AI should be doing something for us, and at this stage it should be so mature and so ready and so purposeful, and it isn't, and it's not going to be, and it never will be.
No.
So a lot of this conversation already, which is absolutely where I'm thrilled we're taking it, is around this human belief, because we as humans assign all these attributes, these needs, these possibilities, these dreams to these things, and when they don't live up to it, we scoff at them. And that to me really in many ways sums up with this AI battle. I've done this for so long, being a futurist or a foresight strategist, which is where I really started off. But you can't sell a foresight strategist on stage or in marketing. It just sounds as boring as Geldol. So you call yourself a futurist. But my stock in trade is really walking alongside people, choosing forward. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, looking at what might be ahead and making conscious choices about it. I've been doing this for so long that I remember, I know I don't look this old, but I remember when the mobile phone first came in, when the PC first came in, talking people through the internet and what a waste of time that will be and how frivolous that's going to be. And please, let's all turn the damn thing off, this dial-up. That noise is just driving me crazy, that dial-up noise. And I can't get anything. My wife screams at me all the time because she can't get on the phone. I remember all those days, and social media when it first came in. I think, Grace, in our first conversation, I mean, me on stage, our first conversation was around trying to convince people around social media's worth in any sense whatsoever, let alone a business one. All of these
100%.
things were just so impossible, so stupid, so useless, like electricity and gas in the old days. Electricity and gas was literally in the 1900s from the pulpit, from the church pulpit, was told to parishioners, do not turn the devil on. Do not allow it in your home. Keep it out. Now, I'm not off track. It often seems I am, but I'm coming back to our point, and that is around all this technology that becomes known to people, becomes something we think is going to be purposeful and useful. We build it up to the point where not even this anthropomorphic thing can possibly live up to the expectations of it, and then begin to bag on it when it doesn't. And it can't, and it won't. And our discussions, I think, will be around artificial intelligence and what it is and what it can't be and all that kind of stuff. So I love it. I love technology. I love it for the opportunity, for the ability to allow me to imagine a different world. I use it now intrinsically. I've actually written on it in the last couple of months to I find it fascinating because for my entire career, kind of going behind the curtains, I've been a solopreneur. I've done this my way. I've been a maverick. I've run my own corporation. I literally started in the garage at home at 18. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I did. I've not had many people to talk to. And after this conversation, you'll realize why no one wants to talk to me. But I've not had many people to talk to in my life. I don't have office environments. I don't have people really to talk things through. I've got lots of mates and lots of futurists and wonderful people like you that I have conversations with. I talk to people all day in, day out. Where I'm going to with this rambling is I've actually enjoyed the offsider nature of artificial intelligence. I can actually have a really good argument with my keyboard or with the microphone. I can wrestle it and ask it to find me things and do all the kinds of research that used to take me days and weeks, and sometimes I gave up because I just couldn't be bothered working that hard to find it. I kind of like artificial intelligence or the ability to have somebody else or something else work down that road for me. Intrinsically, for me, I can now do things that I was not able to do at the depth and the speed. So I can work at machine language, which is really unusual because my work was pedantic and slow by choice. I mean, I write on average, I mean, throughout my life, I write on average about 5,000 words a week plus. I'm up to about 10, 15,000 words a week now. And that's in writing reports, it's in writing all kinds of scenarios, it's in reading and researching. I can do that far better now, but this damn thing that's meant to do everything for me doesn't. It still irritates the hell out of me. I still find at times that I've given up my belief to it and I have to pull myself back because I think it should be doing something. And to your point, Grayson, before, it often tells me that I'm doing something that's right or chooses for me to do something that I know is wrong. I mean, this week, really simply for me, I'm trying to upgrade a piece on my website, nowhere near as sophisticated as you, nowhere near.
I'm
And,
not sophisticated, but yes.
and I had this thing where I had to go back to my host, and I hate dealing with them. It's chat, where you got to type away for half an hour to get something really simple. If you just talk to me as a human, we could resolve in 30 seconds. I asked ChatGPT to kind of intermediary, write me the quick chat notes for this and tell me what I need to tell them to get where we want to go. It advised me to ask them for something, and I'm not great at this thing, but I've done it enough to know. It advised me to ask them to do something that just made me shiver. If it had done it, it would have blown my website up. I mean, I just know intrinsically, I cannot tell you in any empirical sense, I know it would have blown up my website just by asking it to do this one tweak of upgrade. And when I punched back at ChatGPT and I said, if you do this, this is a likely outcome, it then said to me, yeah, you're right, it would. Let's not do it. Well, hello.
Yeah.
I'm not getting any younger here. I mean, I just wasted 15 minutes of my life arguing with you. I can't get back. Why didn't you just tell me that from the beginning? So I think AI is wonderful, but to your point, we really do need to understand that it's just a damn machine, like PCs were, like the internet, like everything else. We got to tame it.
There
Well, I
was
just want to
something
touch
you did
on.
say. Oh,
Sorry,
go
you
ahead.
go,
Yeah.
Grayson.
No, you're sort of leading towards. There was something you said though that the pace of our invention has now outstripped the pace of adoption. I thought that was a really interesting comment. What does that mean to you more deeply? Obviously, things are coming out so quickly, but what's the impact of that?
The impact of that is now that we are thinking far too fast. As humans, we were not put on this earth to think as fast or to think as deeply or as widely as we currently do. That's not a bad thing. It's just that we don't have the rules in place for it. Our world, our society, our thinking, all of that just doesn't match to it. When I started, and I use me only because it's the only thing I know and because it shows a historical perspective. When I started my practice in the 80s, I could say to a client that we will come back to this in a year, meaning that nothing's going to change. I mean, when I come to your conference in a year, or when I come to your meeting in a year, we will talk about this, in marketing terms or whatever. The world will not have changed. Today, if I say to them, I will come back to you in 5 minutes, it might be a completely different world to the one I left them 5 minutes ago. There is so much happening, so many things around us, so many possibilities. This artificial intelligence and all the senses of it is feeding us information. We are just not capable of thinking that fast, but yet we're being told that we have to. And that's not overtly, it's covertly. We're being told that we should be able to think that fast, make that many decisions, and spin that quickly. And we just can't, and we shouldn't, and we need to stop. We just need to stop and take a breath.
We talk about that all the time, don't we, Ben? You sort of lose context, and it also compresses your day, is for lack of a better, vocabulary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where do you think all this hype is coming from? So like you spoke about the beliefs and there's this build up, but this hype, like, okay, I guess on one angle, we've got these tech CEOs, they want to sell us, they've got the biggest, best and brightest, sharpest tool
PT
that's ever
bums.
been. Exactly. But then what is it in, do you think, is there something innate deeply in humans that we're all going for this artificial intelligence? Like, is this, like, why do Grayson and I do it rather than just not do it? Where do you think that drive comes from?
Humans, ever since we've been put on this planet, as far as I can understand, we haven't changed. We haven't changed. We're human. We've evolved. Our brains got smaller or larger. Our fingers have got smaller or larger over the millenniums. We've kind of evolved over time, but intrinsically, our needs are the same. The way that our brain is kind of wired is kind of pretty much the same as it's always been. We have this innate desire. We have always, always, always created tools that have made our lives easier. Even before we knew about it, we created a fulcrum, which was a simple stick that helped us move a rock that we couldn't move on with our own two hands, or we were too lazy to. And too lazy is great. It's not negative. We just didn't want to. So we tried to find a better way to do it. Eventually, we got better at that. We built the steam engine. I mean, I've just skipped a whole lot. I've spoke about a million years of human evolution, but we built the steam engine. We did all kinds of stuff. And each of them has been about making our hands and our feet work less. What's happened in the last 20 years is that we have begun to want to make our brain work less. And we have outsourced our thinking. And the PC was the beginning of this. When we look at early days, and I'm going to pick on this only as a brand name, not because it did it, but if we take something as simple as Excel, the Excel spreadsheet, and I am going somewhere with this, the Excel spreadsheet, it kind of changed the way that we thought, because all of a sudden we could do what ifs, and we could put scenarios in, and we could put numbers in, and we could change a number. Before, if we sat in front of something, we might have wanted to figure out, if my percentage point changes on this, or if this changes. And at some point I just gave up and thought, it's all too much. What I have is enough, and that's where I'm stopping. And we knew that was the limit of about how far we could push it or want to push it. And the PC kind of made that quicker and faster for us, and we got used to it. And then the internet meant that I could find you and you could find me, and I could get wisdom, or I could get intellect anyway, from all sorts of places. We then started to drown in information, which is the internet. I had access to books and volumes and all sorts of things I never ever thought I would be able to put my fingertips on. It was amazing what I could find. So the answer to the question is that we have slowly, like the boiling frog, gotten used to this world where we are immersed in possibility, which takes us beyond our physicality. And the more we do that, the more enticed we get about the possibility of how far it might take us. And we also then begin to question ourselves, why aren't I clever enough to actually be able to master this? Why can't I do this? Everyone around me seems to be doing this better than me. Again, human foibles, back to our basic needs. I would challenge the fact, and you two have been really honest about your grappling with AI, again, good and bad, it doesn't matter. Most of the conversations we read is hype. It's not real. It just is not real. It's a mythological belief that somebody is using AI to a level that's well beyond us. It's people telling us that they've been able to change their whole business from being a 50-person to a 1-person with a bit of AI and a bot and a bit of this. Now, I don't for a moment say they're lying. I'm not. I'm saying that for that type of person, that is a perfectly logical conclusion for where they would take the technology. But for the rest of us mere mortals, it isn't. But it seems to be the holy grail of where we think we should be. We're watching some people tell us that the world can be different because it is different for them using these tools. It's fed by an insatiable appetite, as you said, by people who want to sell us these abilities, these tools, these techniques, and we are all buying it. And we shouldn't, because it doesn't fit us all. It never will. It never should. They make different size shoes for a very good reason, and that's because we all don't have the same size feet.
Well, a really interesting point you raised up in there. You said, like, how we do this to see how far it can take us. From that, take us where? Where do you see us wanting to go with
Into
this?
this Wizard of Oz land, into this belief that we have that our life can be invariably different if we apply the potion to our skin to make it different or age less. If we take the AI, we can automatically change our lifestyle and make more money. When PCs came in, when social media came in, PCs particular, I remember this furphy about people working less. All of a sudden, I won't have to work a 5-day week. I'll be able to sit on some beach and sip martinis all day because the PC will do the work for me. It is statistically proven that we actually work more hours now than we did in the Industrial Revolution.
Of course.
We work more hours now than we do in the Industrial Revolution. And that is because we don't stop working. The difference is this. This is how I calculated it a long time ago. In the Industrial Revolution, we kind of started and stopped. We started at some particular time. We didn't have a clock. So we started at sunrise or whatever, and we stopped as soon as the toilet was finished. We don't do that anymore. We use milliseconds to look at our emails. We talk about work in the middle of the day. We do all kinds of things. When you add up the milliseconds, the seconds, the minutes, the times we rob from ourselves away from the traditional 9 to 5, which I don't think should exist, but if we take that as our yardstick, we now work more hours and our mind is more active now than it ever has been at any time on this planet. And AI is just feeding that even more.
So do you think we're living under an illusion then? Because if we're going, like us regular people, going to this under the premise that this is going to save us time, we can work less. But if we look back at all the other examples of new technology coming in, it just means that we work more, and the more manual work that we did beforehand is valued far less with these new tools. So us as regular people, should we just stop and say we don't want this technology because we can see how this is going to project out? Our 40, 60-hour week is still going to be exactly the same. The expectation of our output is going to be much, much higher, and we will never get ahead.
We're all regular people. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the reality is this. I mean, there's a whole lot of notions embedded in there. So if we can unpick some of them. Firstly, this notion of time. I mean, what do we want to do with our time?
Family.
There is this notion of it, yeah? I'm really against that. I think this whole construct we have of how we spend our time is something that's been sold to us over the last 150 years. It's part of the Industrial Revolution movement. It made perfect sense. I never say these things as being better or worse. I don't believe in that. There is not bad and good. It is just different. It made perfect sense for the last 150 years for us to work 5-day weeks, 9 to 5. We know why. It's the way we manufactured. We were centralized. We did all of these things. Everything in our lives was geared towards that. Retirement was at 65 because we were physically unwell by then to continue on. Our superannuation system was meant for us to die at 75. We now refuse to do that, and the government's got all kinds of issues. Everything we've done has been based around this construct of working Monday to Friday, 2 days off, but we haven't worked that way for most of humanity. We just haven't. So my question is, firstly, I don't agree with this notion of work and not work. I think we have to understand what we do with our time and use it meaningfully and purposefully. For many people, that means working at a traditional set of works, and there's nothing wrong with that, which gives you a set period of time and days to do that work in. But if you look at the younger generations, I admire them greatly. And again, it's hard to put everybody into one basket. I'm not trying to do that. But I'm talking about the mindset, the cultural shift of this generation. And that is that I don't want to work that way. I don't want to live that way. I'm really happy to sweat as much as you need me to, as long as it serves us both. At some point, I'm going to say enough is enough, and I'm going to go off skiing. I'm going to go off backpacking. I'm going to take 6 months off and do some volunteering. I'm going to jump in an Uber because my brain's sure and I just want to do this for a while and just make some money. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I'll come back and I'm going to have this really fluid life. I know it's not perfect, and I'm selling it as if it is. It's messy. It's all kinds of things. But really, it comes down to the question of what do we want? What do we want to do with our lives? How do we want to spend our hours? I think artificial intelligence, machines, PCs, all of that has given us that choice. It's given us the freedom to do it. Artificial intelligence has the possibility to change our lives in ways that we have never dreamed of before. And we've dreamed big and imagined boldly ever since we were put on this earth. But we can now do things and potentially will be able to do things that we have never thought possible, but will we use them in ways that serve us? I'm not sure. We'll have to decide.
What's really interesting point there, because earlier when you spoke on the speed and the expectation, or I guess like the hyper speed that we have, the hyper velocity we have to think at, is it possible to even have any moments to reflect and ponder it and take a deep breath to take it all in when there's so much information, like bang, 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 every route, every pathway, every possibility at your fingertips? Well, here's another. Let's take this further. Where do you see things like overwhelm, information overload, mental health? How do you see that? Let's say we're running this analog meat system. How do you see this, like, sort of, does it get caught up in all of this fast
Yes.
moving transactions?
Yes. Which is why I use the mantra, always have choose forward. Make deliberate choices. Make deliberate human choices. Now, choices doesn't always mean they're easy. It doesn't mean we can make them and there's no consequences to them. Some of the things you've just mentioned, again, I think are wonderful conversations to have. You talked about mental health, and that's become a really big issue in the last 10 years. It's been a really big issue ever since we were put on this planet. I'm not putting it down. I think it's the most incredible thing that we are now allowed to talk to. What I'm suggesting here is that we can now have the conversation about mental health. It is a normal conversation to have, and to talk about whether it affects us, whether the workplace, whether the pace and the other things, I think is the most incredible gift we have given ourselves ever
Yeah.
since we were put on this earth. Because I can tell you 10 years ago, if I stood up as an elder, which I'm not, I should stop saying that, but as a male who was in the workforce, if I put my hand up and said, you know what, my brain isn't just keeping up with me at the moment, something about it and the way I'm thinking and the way I'm feeling about the world just doesn't feel right to me, I would be thrown out the nearest window possible. They would make up all kinds of, not physically, of course, I don't mean that, but I mean in all kinds of ways in the workforce, I would have been seen as being inferior and no longer purposeful. And we are now no longer accepting that as a conversation. We are saying that's a whole lot of crap because you are a human. And as a human, these feelings are normal. They are normal. At the moment, you may be overwhelmed by that, but I'm willing to have that conversation with you. The workplace is willing to accept that conversation. Society is not willing to brand you anymore as being an outsider for having them. So I'm really playing hard with your conversation because I think the very words that we use are pejorative. I mean, all of us across society, they are laced with previous incarnations of what they once meant, and we are trying to put them into tomorrow's landscape. So what I mean by that is if we can continue with this mental health conversation specifically. As I said, mental health was not something you could talk about 10 years ago. Today, I think it absolutely is. I think artificial intelligence, as well as humanity, can really help us with mental health. It is not the savior of us, artificial intelligence. Humanity is. But I've seen some really good work being done with machines, artificial intelligence, that allow us to capture our thoughts, that allow us to slow down, that allow us to breathe correctly, that allow us to connect up and have these conversations I'm having with somebody that can offer assistance that's skilled in that, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a coach. I can have these things at any moment of the day. I couldn't have done them before. Artificial intelligence can give me some indication with all the parameters we've just said of not believing it, of it just being a tool, but it can start to help for me to capture my thinking, perhaps to share my thinking, my thoughts and my patterns, perhaps to give me some indication that perhaps what I'm doing is not in my best interest. In other words, stop mentally running so fast, take a pause, think through, breathe through. Maybe we need to connect you up with somebody to have a conversation. There are all sorts of things that I think artificial intelligence can do really well, which comes down to, again, a basic belief I have, and that is that all these things are tools, just tools. Stop believing them and being anything else. If you put a screwdriver in my hand, do you know what it becomes? The most lethal weapon on this earth, because I will murder anything I put that screwdriver next to, including a screw, which is where it belongs. But in the hands of people that know what to do with it, it is a joyous, wonderful, creative, purposeful tool. And it's the same with artificial intelligence, the same with PCs, the same with everything. let's use it for what it is and not try and make it into something else. It's not a god. It's not a demigod. We shouldn't be worshipping it.
Ben and I have created chatbots off Carl Jung and Freud, and I'd have to agree there's some use there, but I think there's maybe some obvious gaps. So when does the human element need to step in with the AI? And you talk about different tasks being broken down, human, machine, and AI. What does that sort of look like in terms of when do you introduce the human element, or is it we're going to end up relying on AI and being almost tricked by it? You know, there are people having relationships with AI in some ways, which seems a bit dystopian.
And there's the extreme of that too. There is the extreme where already people are having relationships in the human sense with machines and with artificial intelligence and bots and robots. Back to your point, I think what you're alluding to is a tool that I use in my work, which is called Humand, HUMAND. It's human and. I've used it again for a long time. It's my way of trying to understand what the workforce should be. Whether it's 40 hours a week, 9 to 5, doesn't matter. What I believe and what I've always believed, as I've said to you already a few times, is that we choose to create tools that make our lives, our work better or easier or whatever that next word is for us. I've extended it now in the last 3 years to include artificial intelligence, knowing full well artificial intelligence has been on the horizon for 60 or 70 years. I've talked about it for 20 plus years. But the last 3 years, especially ChatGPT, which is the Xerox, it's the Kleenex. In other words, it's the brand that everybody else calls everything else by. It's the thing that came into our lives all of a sudden one morning I wasn't talking about. The next morning for a month, literally every interview I did, every client I had to talk about it. What I say to people is this: if we are going to look at any task, and for me it's specifically work tasks, it works just as well in our lives though, is let's think sensibly. Let's choose forward. Let's think sensibly about what it is. I don't believe work exists. Don't. I believe what work is a series of tasks. Tasks are joined together to give us an end result. Work is what we call the amalgamation of those tasks at the end of a week when we get paid. But back to the point that you asked. What I believe and what artificial intelligence I'm desperate for it to do for us now is to break down this old notion of work into a series of tasks, which are discrete activities that have to be done to complete some end result, whether it's creating an invoice, answering the phone, making sales, saving somebody's life by an eye operation, it doesn't matter. Let's look at every single step that has to go into that piece of activity, and let's ask ourselves a question. Is that particular step done best by a human? Is it best done by a machine that's repetitive and that's its role? Or is it best done by artificial intelligence, which can bring intellect to it and bring some basic level of thinking and some basic level of analysis to it? Which one of those is best suited to that particular element of that task? Or is it a combination of 2 or 3 of them? So if I've got a sales call I have to make, a traditional salesperson would have spent, not that long ago, quite a deal of time, I'm hoping, getting to know the customer before they pick up the phone or write the letter or whatever they do, getting to know their target markets, getting to know what their widgets are, getting to know what their pain points are, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually looking at their social media, if we're talking more recently. That's human activity. I'd argue now that most probably is better done by artificial intelligence that can bring together a summation of who that client is and what their bits and pieces are and bring it to me quite swiftly. I'm not going to accept it. So this is not face value. But the base grunt work can be done best by a piece of artificial intelligence. Wasn't that long ago, guys, when you used to have these clients, you put them on a piece of card, literal piece of cardboard card, the Kalamazoo system for some people, and that card went into a teledex. What I do now is, you talked about it before, is we have a CRM, which is a machine, which of course is a much better way of keeping client records. So let's let the machine keep the client records, keep that up to date, make sure I can find it when I want it. So now I have a machine that keeps my client records, makes sure they're up to date, has the most reasonable information I need, shares that across a whole lot of people. Artificial intelligence is doing my basic assembly work of bringing all the information together for me. And then I have me, the human, the wise human, that uses both of those things to do what I need to do, which is to make that sales call. That's the analogy we're continuing with. That's how I want the world to be. This orchestration, this dynamic orchestration, us thinking constantly which of the three is best suited to doing this task. And that changes because the capability of all three changes. That's what I think is the way we should be living in our world. The way that I want to plan my holidays, the ways that I want to go out for dinner, all those things are really still around this notion.
It's happened so quickly. What do you think leaders need to do? The cycle's so short. What do they need to do next year or within the next 3 months in those terms? Are they making a conscious decision with their teams around processes and applications? I mean, I think you talk about choosing 3 tools at some point. What does it look like for the next 3 months, 6 months maximum, probably?
So the 3 tools is a trick that I use, and that is that really to slow people down. Again, it's that conscious choosing forward. That what we tend to do after a conversation is that we tend to want to go out and fix everything. And of course, as you and I know, or perhaps just as me, I know that if I try to fix everything, I fix nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So all I do is try and slow people down, and I ask them to pick 3 things that they might be able to affect in the next while, knowing that once they've done those, they will then go on to do the next. So that's that 3-tool mechanism. I think it's a really good, useful way for us to consciously choose forward. Now, leadership for me is really coming down to, and I've just written a new piece, a whole series of new pieces actually over the last few weeks on what I think the future of leadership will be, because it is invariably different than we have understood it to be in the past. If I can take you on a tangent, if you're willing to go on a tangent with me around leadership on this.
Yeah.
We have to begin to question what is leadership and who and what provides it, because artificial intelligence is already becoming a leader. I'm not arguing that's a good thing, yeah? I immediately stepped in there and said it may not be a good thing. I didn't take a breath even in going from one to the other.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that for many people, it is already leading them. They have already made a subconscious choice to allow it to say something, and again, that might be written, I'm just using the word say, it allows it to say something and it then acts on it. Is that what a leader is? Because in the past, that's what a leader did for us. They gave us information and then we acted blindly on it. Now, I'm not picking on religion because I'm not picking on governments, but they told us things and we moved on it and we considered them to be leaders. So we need to be really mindful. Do we need somebody who stands up at the top of the hill and makes us want to run over it and go into battle? Maybe. I'm not arguing either way. But I am arguing that perhaps leadership needs to be thought of as more being internal than external now, and perhaps it's dissolving. Perhaps it's not a person or a thing anymore. Perhaps it's a number of people or a number of things that need to lead us. Maybe at times it is one person. But I'm kind of sensing in the last year or two that it's no longer a person that's at the very top anymore, meaning that I'm not talking about the CEO necessarily, but we always looked, and we use the word up. So we looked up to the pulpit, we looked up to politicians, we looked up to parents. I'm not sure we do that anymore. I think we look ahead and we look around us and we look for people like us. So I'm not off topic here. I'm really asking about if we are leading people in the sense that we used to use the word, and I understand its use. I mean, if we talk about it in that sense, perhaps we're already discounting what it is we have to do moving forward. Perhaps what we need to understand is what is it we are trying to guide people towards or manage them or lead them towards, and how best that's done. And I think that's a conversation, if we think we are the leader, that we need to have with ourselves and the people around us, understand that what we are providing that once might have been seen as leadership is still what's necessary. I'm not convinced that that is necessarily true if you take an old-fashioned hierarchy of work. The leader was the person who owned the place or had the access to the checkbook. I'm not sure that's seen as a leader anymore, and we see many people who are dispelling that by their choice to leave. So those things I think are important. We also need to figure out, as I've said already,
Well,
this
can I just
human.
ask a question
Yeah,
there?
oh, yeah,
I think it's
even
really
more. Keep
good.
going. Yeah.
I love when this is one of my favorite tasks to do, is to ask what a basic word means. Something like a leader. Something we take for granted so often, but when you start to dissect it, it's like, oh, what does it actually mean? I think you bring some good points. But just going off on just your thought process there. Let's ask the same question. Like, to you, in your eyes, what is a follower?
A follower is somebody that is either looking for guidance, is looking for braveness, is looking for somebody that's been down the road before.
Mm-hmm.
I think it often comes down to us being uncertain or unwilling to make a choice for ourselves. Now, don't read negative into that. Don't. Because we often are faced with things that we are unaware of and have not had to have the knowledge of or the wisdom of before.
Mm-hmm.
If we take, for instance, that horrible thing that none of us ever want to be placed in the position of, but having an illness that 10 minutes ago was not part of our lives, but all of a sudden is. We cannot become wise in those 10 minutes. We must find people, I think, not necessarily maybe to follow, but to learn from. Yeah.
And I think
So
that's a
I'm
really good point you've got there. Like, the wisdom is coming from experience, lived experience, rather than theoretical. Rather than theoretical. So it's like the university student who comes straight out of university with a degree versus someone who's been doing it for 40 years, whose opinion has more weight. But then, do you think that kind of answers the question when we talk about leaders? Like, does that just cancel out machines in general because they haven't had the lived experience? They've consumed all the data of people who've lived that experience, but is that the same as having the same scar tissue for yourself?
No, I don't think it does, because we shouldn't assume that longevity gives you wisdom. It doesn't. I mean, I've met people who are very, very young who don't have the longevity, who don't have the years to be able to call themselves wise in a traditional sense, but are far wiser than other people.
But is it just experience? So a 21-year-old could go through some, heavy experiences, which could bring them wisdom, but they've gone through those experiences, where a machine's only going to back propagate and calculate what that experience means in a human context, but not have actually lived it.
I'm not sure a machine isn't wise. I mean, I think in some instances a machine is wise, but not in the way that you and I would normally use that word. Wisdom also means there is wisdom also means surety. It also means that we have a sense of reliability. Those things are wise as well. We would not follow somebody that didn't have those characteristics. If a Cadbury machine is putting out the same Cadbury piece of chocolate time after time after time, it is in some ways providing that wisdom, because it is repetitive, it is sure, we know the outcome, and we are happy for it to do it until it can't.
But it sounds like that's just a product of its programming as well. The wise engineer behind it has programmed it to do that task.
Isn't wisdom to some extent our programming? If we take wisdom as being religion, for instance, isn't it somebody that has followed that religion, that understands the mantra, that can give us? I'm not arguing machines are wiser than us. It's not the point of this thing. I'm saying that it is difficult, I find, and this is my mind exploding every minute of every day. One of the things I'm careful of is really careful of the language and the word, because I find they have anchors. And again, that's not bad or good, but the anchor can be the thing that stops us from moving forward. And for me to accept that there is a pure definition based on anything which gives us wisdom or anything else, I find it in and of itself stops any possibility of a future direction that might be different. So,
do you think,
to me,
looking forward, a machine could actually choose the future?
I hope
not. It's not going to today.
I hope not. And Arnold Schwarzenegger has a lot to do. I mean, a lot to answer for. I can tell you nearly every day of my life, when I get up on stage or in a conversation in the boardroom, somebody will give me that Arnold Schwarzenegger thing of, they're coming for us. I hope not. We should all invest in a really simple $3 thing, and that's what I call a brick. Something to throw at technology when it doesn't do what we want it to do. It will not be our overlord. I don't understand this. I just do not understand this. I mean, I do from a human perspective of why we believe that to be true. But in believing that, we believe that we have no control over our destiny or our future. We believe that these machines will come alive. We could theoretically bring them to a position where they could come alive. They could be this Disney thing, this broomstick thing that comes alive and dances around and cleans up stuff. And yes, we've seen humanoid robots only in the last week or two or month or year, depending on which one you're looking at, Neo, that look humanistic. And yes, we can pump them with what we believe is AI intellect. So possibly they could make decisions and could become our lords and could become our masters, and we could all be enslaved to them for the rest of our lives. Is that the world we really want? Are we going to allow that to happen? I'm truly banking that we're not and we won't, and we shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that that is the natural end result of what these machines will do if we allow them to be in our lives. We have to understand that we can tame them, because we can, again, if we choose forward.
I think what's really interesting is unintended consequences.
Yes.
And like from all these like sci-fi novels and movies, it's the utopia that is dystopia. And it's everyone's trying to do the right thing. But it's been lost in that beautiful vision that everybody wants, that we forget about the second and third order effects. But what I like is you're choosing forward. So I've got young kids. They're 3 and 1. And so I think about what's their future going to look like. So at home, I've got my little 3-year-old running around on VR, and we're designing all these little sort of play areas. And because I'm trying to go the other way, when the other parents are saying, or everyone's trying to sort of rule out screen time, I'm going the other way and just slapping it on his face. But when I'm thinking choosing forward, I'm thinking, okay, what does the future of computing look like? Is it spatial? Is it using proprioception? Let's say in your universe, all these tools, AI tools, whatever it may be by that point, is doing everything for you. And you sort of walk in more like the Wizard of Oz, and doing spells and things just are happening. What do you think, or for me as a parent, what do you think I should be teaching my kids now, starting at 3?
I don't think you should be teaching them anything. I think you need to be modeling and showcasing. I mean, I have grandchildren your age. Yeah. I've had my kids, when my kids were born, I did exactly what you do. So when I was told PCs were terrible and they were the devil incarnate and the child should never look at it, they're going to go blind because their eyes are going to be looking at it,
Yeah.
and the mouse are going to lose their dexterity and they won't talk to anybody. And I've heard all of this. I did the exact opposite. I have a picture which is heinous of my young son, who at 6 months of age had a mouse, computer mouse, yeah, in his hand, looking at an old orange PC screen. Everybody yelled at me. And I thought it was the most incredibly wonderful gift that I could model for him. My children had internet in their bedrooms. I literally hard cabled the PCs into their room. I still have coax cable running around my house. And what I did was I took the fear away of using technology. I also took the necessity of using technology away from them, because I made it so ordinary for them that they didn't understand what it was everyone was jumping up and down about. I can tell you that, yes, they did things on it perhaps I don't want to know about, and I don't. But I also spooked the hell out of them, because they believed that I could see anything they did, and I knew what they were using it for. And to this day, they still think that's true, even though I've told them it never was. And what I gave them was the joy of being able to move away from it, because it was no longer this mythical thing that, they had to be scared of, or they had to, they weren't going to a candy store in a hungry mode. They were just used to it. So they had a mouse in their hand. They knew what it was. They had a screen available to them. They knew what it was. When the internet became available, they had internet access, again, within parameters. I wasn't lazy about this. I wasn't allowing them open slather, but I did what I thought every parent should have done ever since they were put on this earth, and that is teach my children what I think are good habits, ways to be wonderful human beings, ways to manage themselves in the world, using these tools as purposeful objects in their broader world, but hoping that the morals I put inside, the habits I gave them, the wisdom to see the world in a particular way, the ability to look for joy in things, the things that my wife and I thought were important, they were the things that I really concentrated on, we concentrated on. It was not technology. Technology
So
was
that's what you
part of their world.
models.
And that's what I'm hoping we model. And I think we did.
Okay.
I truly think we did. And I see children today that I think represent that well. Are they the best children in the world? No, they're not, because we all have the right to make children in our own mind, in our own guise. And they represent what we thought good human beings, good stewards of this earth are. To other
So I
people,
guess,
I'm sure they're
yeah.
not.
So it's like just teaching them the value of curiosity, and to not stifle that, but to allow that to grow. And that
But also,
they'll pick what path they do with the technology.
but also not making technology seem as if it's a negative, seem as if it's them or us, because it's not. It's a we. It's not a them and us. The thing I hate about this social media, and I've ranted about it ever since this ban came in, is that it makes no sense whatsoever. I understand why it's being done. I understand the mindfulness of all of that. I'm trying to say that I do, but I don't really. I'm just trying to be nice about it. The reality is, to me, that this social media ban is the prohibition of the 1920s. Pure and simple. Tell people they can't drink. People pretend they're not drinking. They drink from teacups. It makes it becomes even more earnest in their life, more necessary. It's something evil that other people are saying they can't have, so I want more of it. Why do people think it's so bad? I really got to figure it out for myself. I just don't understand that. I understand, again, keeping our children safe. Please don't read anything into it except for that. But I believe that we can do it in other ways, and we have done it as parents ever since we were put on this earth. Yes, we have not had anything like this before to model it on, but that doesn't mean we should go baby in the bathwater, which is what I think we have. If these politicians, and I've said it to their face, really think that every child under 16 is now going to say, okay, I will never touch social media now until I am 16 years old, then they are fooling themselves.
But what would
These
you
kids
do
already know how to
choosing
get around
forward
it.
method?
What is?
I don't think a blanket ban is going to work either, and it's just going to be a whack-a-mole and we'll get even more problems. But going in with the choosing forwards mindset, like, what other solutions do you see? Like, maybe this is not designed to stop it completely, but it's to just put a message that, hey, we acknowledge that, like cigarettes, this is the sticker on the front of the box. Kids are still going to smoke if they want to.
Is this
What do you,
damaging their attention span?
like, what
I
can you
guess
do?
it's the one we're being fed.
Is there an ultimate solution?
This is the problem. This is the problem we have as humans. That unless I can give you an answer now in one sentence, unless I can give you the silver bullet, then nothing makes sense. The reality is I can't and nobody can.
No.
But that doesn't make this right. Because this one thing is not necessarily the best thing, doesn't mean we should take it and nothing else. In my work, and it is coming to this, I use, again, another formula, which is PTFA, past trauma, future anxiety. The thing that I believe very, very strongly, I come from a very humanistic background. When I was very young, I started counselling. I mean, not personally, but I'm a trained counsellor. I've counselled on the streets of St Kilda. I mean, literally crisis counselling. Counselled in prisons. I did that for 10 years. I've seen the best and worst of humanity. I mean, I really have, and I've enjoyed every minute. I know it's a perverse thing to say, but it's given me great joy in life to be able to interact in these ways. Whether I've been meaningful or purposeful is for other people to decide. What I'm saying to you is, and this is where Choose Forward came from and a lot of my principles, past trauma, future anxiety. What this piece of technology talks about is past trauma, which are the people who are making the ban have looked back on their lives and they have said, in my belief, something A causes B. There is a causality between these things. And I want to hug my children, which is totally human and totally wonderful. And I want to make sure they're safe. So I'm going to make sure that these past traumas don't revisit them. But unfortunately, what they've done is they've put their future anxiety, which is their belief that something in the future will cause harm, in the place of this technology, which means is I don't think that kids under 16 necessarily will use technology in a bad way. I know some children do. I accept that. They always have. We've always had bullies. We've always had people that have not done the right thing. But I believe by banning it, we are actually playing out the trauma of the generations that came before them in legislation. And we are also putting anxiety on our children because they are seeing this thing as possibly causing evil in their lives. And they are not capable of dealing with it till they are 16. They're not good messages. They're not wholesome messages to send to children. Yes, we wouldn't put them in a car under 18. I get that. But we teach them about road laws. We teach them how to cross the road. We teach them how to be safe in a car. We put them in a bassinet facing backwards in a car. They're not driving the car, but we're teaching them all the things around being a passenger in a car, living in a world with cars, being safe around cars. Why aren't we doing the same thing with social media? Banning it is not doing it. It has great purposes. It has great evil. And we are actually not banning it. That's the thing that irritates me the most, children can still use it. They just can't have an account in it. They can't have their own house in it. And that somewhat makes sense to me. So perhaps what we should be saying is perhaps these houses they create for themselves, these spaces inside of social media, maybe we need to regulate, maybe we need to be more careful and deliberate about how they act and enact and who reacts in those spaces with them. But let's not use the word social media as being negative. Let's talk about how it's purposeful and useful. And like we do with everything else, wean them into being able to use it purposefully, but yes, be very mindful of what they're doing. And we can do both of them. It's messy and there isn't a silver bullet for how we do it. But I would love a world where that's possible. Let's not teach it in a way of fear. Let's teach it in a way of purposefulness. And to your point before, Grayson, let's teach it in a way where Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I love, I don't know him, but I love him. Let's teach it we're in a world where he is not seen as the dystopian version of what will happen if all things evil befall us because we do use it.
So the past trauma, the future anxiety is almost the opposite to your make a choice model about the future.
No, it plays into both of them. What it says, and this is why it's so vital in my work, is it says that every decision you think you will make, you have to revisit through what has happened to you in your previous work. You have tried to build a website before and you have failed. So therefore, your beginning thinking when you are using something that might help you towards a website is I failed at this before, I might fail again. I haven't been able to do it. So I'm not really all that 100% ready to go down a different road of building it because I've got this fear. Or I've heard of a lot of people that say that it's not going to work. People have given me fear about this. So again, I'm not willing to put my whole heart and soul into it because I think something might happen or something has happened. And that's, to me, they're exactly the same thing. When I'm choosing forward, I'm being 100% mindful of what anchors me backwards or forwards to not being able to achieve it. And if I'm being honest with myself, which I do try and do, I mean, I really do, is I will say, and I know myself well enough that I will say to myself, yeah, when I go down this road, I'm likely to be tripped up because I know that I have this prejudice, which is what these things are, towards this. So I've got to be mindful choosing forward that I either work around the prejudice, I acknowledge them, or perhaps it's so strong that I can't move forward yet. And that's a really difficult thing for many people to say, but it goes to me hand in hand with choosing forward. The more honest you can be with yourself about those prejudices, that's not admitting weakness. It's not saying anything's wrong with you. Not that any of those things are bad anyway, but it's not negative talk. It's finding solutions that say, I'm mindful of these things, therefore I can scaffold beyond them. I can be mindful of them, work past them, work through them, and keep moving forward, not set myself up for more failure.
I'm really interested in your mind and everything you've got to say. I'm also interested in your journey because I know now I feel quite blessed. I'm talking to a futurist. Are you from the future? That's not the question. But how did you go? Tell me your journey from counselor to what led you to what you do now. I think it's really interesting.
So shorthand, I am the proverbial cliche. I started in the garage at home at 18. I mean, literally in the garage at home at 18.
Doing what?
I left school.
What were you doing?
I come from a migrant family. So I'm going back a couple of steps to explain, to give you the answer. I come from a migrant family. My parents literally, again, were the cliche, and I mean that with all the love in the world. They were the cliche migrants who came here with nothing. I mean, literally the suitcase and a young child, which wasn't me. I mean, it was my older sister, yeah? And built a life, which is where I learned to choose forward because they came from horrors of World War II. They had the traumas of it, and they came here believing, again, they didn't use the words, but I know they came here believing they could choose a different path. They started their own business. That business flourished. Again, they had no choice. It was either do that or starve, and their kids were not going to starve. They pumped us with all this belief, even though they didn't know they did that, and also trauma and angst, I must tell you. And my father had his business. He would not let me work. I worked in his business from 8 years old. Yeah, so I learned to work when I was 8.
What was the business?
So our family business was floor coverings, and we started it in the 50s. So my older brothers, my older siblings all worked manually in the business. My father, when I came around, because we all say mother and father, but I'm much younger than they were. there's a couple of us came the other end when things were better. So by the time I came around, my father did not want me to work physically. He was dead against it. He never said it, but everything he manifested. But he put me in the office as soon as I could write. So I was literally writing invoices. I was doing sales. I did Saturday sale, did all of that. He wouldn't let me get a job because he said I had to concentrate on my schoolwork, and my job was to help him with his work, and that's what I did. When I was 18, I looked around. I went to university. I started my uni job. I went and I started to work for somebody else. It just didn't feel right because I never had that experience of working for anybody else. So my first job was in the garage at home. My first job was I delivered leaflets into letterboxes. Good uni job. I decided literally within about 2 hours of doing my first leaflet drop, why am I working for somebody else? I mean, it's easy. I can do this. So I started up my own business literally at 18 while I was going to university. And I then hired somebody else because I figured that I wasn't going to walk because it didn't make sense. I'd go out and do the sales, get the jobs in. And I built that business in 4 years from the garage. I took it into an office. This sounds so grandiose. Please forget it after I say it. I built it into 1,000 people business. Now, if you think about it, it's not. I knew you were going to wow. Everybody wows. I'm going to tell you the logistics of why it's not wow. The logistics is an average person can only deliver 250 leaflets in about 3.5 hours. Most clients will give you a half a day or a day to deliver all their leaflets. If you're going to deliver 10,000, which is a basic drop, most suburbs have 30, 35,000 leaflets in them. You can't do it with one or two people. You need volume people. I'm talking pre-PCs. This was late 80s, yeah? So I had to build a team really quickly. I had to build managers really quickly. I had to build all kinds of systems. I was writing 1,000 checks a week because there was no other way to do it, paying people. In this system, I was told that entrepreneurship was terrible, being young was terrible, because no bank manager wanted to talk to me. I mean, no client wanted to talk to this upstart 18, 19, 20-year-old. Nobody believed you could do it. It was a different world. It truly was. I sold that business 4 years later because the world told me that I shouldn't be doing it.
Who's the
Now,
world and what were they saying?
everybody. My parents, everybody I knew, my bank managers, my landlords, the clients I went to, the world generally said 18-year-old should be at school, don't be an upstart. I grew a beard, thicker than this, and I looked older then than I do now. I bought a Holden Caprice when I was 20 years old. You don't even know what that is. It was the most Holden that you could buy. It is not a 20-year-old car. It is an old man in a suit and a beard turning up for your business car because I had to prove to people that's the way that the world had to see me. As part of that, I also then my work on the streets and in prisons was voluntary. I chose to do that. And I did that simultaneously with the work I've just described and going to university. So I was just a total flake when I was in those decades because it wasn't what the world wanted of somebody who was 18 onwards. It just wasn't. So to me, it was all the same thing. So I learnt about people from the ground up. I understood I think I understood what made us tick as best as I could. So my world as a futurist was really based on my parents' beliefs there was a better tomorrow, and they worked really hard to have it. It was based on my understanding that if I took a business from nothing, from an idea to a concept, into a finished piece and then sold it, even though I was told that wasn't necessarily a great thing I achieved, that I could manufacture a future for myself. I could believe in a world and I could bring it about. And technology to me was a great way to enhance it because technology meant I waited for the mobile phone to come so that, oh God, this makes me sound old. And if you see me, I don't think I look that old, but looking back, it makes me feel old. I waited for the mobile phone to come out because the mobile phone meant I could take my office on the road for the first time, even though it was expensive and phone calls were cumbersome and all that rest. I literally had the first, it's not even used anymore, when Telstra came out in 1991 with the ability to be able to move your phone. So in other words, somebody phoned you, you could send it somewhere else. I was the first one in Victoria to subscribe to that, so I could take my phone out of my office and send to my mobile.
Mm-hmm.
I love technology because technology enabled me to do things that I knew I couldn't do otherwise. When I started my first business, we had used the Melways, the Sidways, whatever it was, but Melways for me, which is a road map, yeah? I literally cut up the Melways because there was no way to put together a map to show my people where they had to walk. So I literally cut up the Melways and stuck it together with sticky tape and created maps of Victoria street by street. Now, eventually that became possible by PCs. Eventually I used the census material to be able to create that. That's where I love technology, because to me, it's a tool. So all of these things told in reverse are my chronology of what to me made futurism. I also, in the middle of all of this is the history of me. It's got very boring. Also in the middle of that, I also became a university lecturer.
Oh,
I did that for
what
15 years through the postgrad. And I did that all simultaneously. None of this was ever linear. It was all simultaneous. I mean, I ran businesses, did my counseling, did all that all at the same time. So I grounded my theory really strongly. I learned what the theorists said, spoke to my students who were grappling to try and understand it and how to make sense of it for them. And I also had my clients then. By that stage, I was doing business strategy. I mean, really, that's what my forte is business strategy. It has been ever since I started. Business strategy to me meant that I had to understand what tomorrow's world looked like, because that's where I was useful. I'm terrible with numbers. I'm not, but I don't understand how I can influence you with numbers that happened already. But I can influence your world thinking forward. People said to me, if you want to be that clever and tell us how to change our business, then be better at telling me about what the world might look like. What is changing? How will my business change? Why? What will my people need from me? How will my customers evolve? What will technology do? What are the ripple effects of all the things you're talking about? And to me, that's the beginning of foresight strategy. I became a futurist, share it with you as I do with everybody else openly. So a strategist is where I am. That's where my chops are. That's where my qualification is, as well as education. I became a futurist because it was a great way to create my marketing around becoming a speaker and selling my services. Nobody hires a foresight strategist. Lots of people hire a futurist. Same beast, different purpose. That was a long answer to your short question.
No, it's perfect. I actually want to know more about that, but yeah, Grayson, do you have a question? I'm just looking at all my notes.
If I could be selfish,
Yes.
Please. We all are.
But yeah, no, we are. Back that horse. What I work in agriculture. If you had to put your hat on and look into the future of ag, what do you see? What do you see going on? What does the future of ag look like? And that's a broad question.
I love the future of agriculture. Do you know I stood on your stage in 2012 in Tasmania? I did the opening keynote for your association. Also made it onto the news and the newspapers for that conference too, talking about the future of ag. It's an industry. I'm not saying it because you've asked a question. It seems like I should be sucking up to you.
No.
I use it. I truly use it as what I think the vanguard of what great technology use is, because the reality for ag was that it was going backwards. It has never been more necessary. You've never had to do more with less than ever before on this planet. When I started working with your industry, and I worked with Hell Horticulture Australia Limited before I met you guys, I've worked across most dairy associations, all kinds of associations and bits and pieces. The conversation was that our people were leaving us. The kids, the fourth generation, fifth generation was no longer interested in the land. It was getting all too hard and difficult. We had to do more with less. There's this thing about, the world warming up. All these things were around. Technology was really coming down on us. And basically the land just isn't giving us what we need. What you guys took, and which I loved, I mean, it was pushback for the first couple of years, was the notion that technology could actually be part of your solution. That what was going to happen was that technology could provide those hands and feet that you couldn't provide, even with the best of intent. And that what technology could also do is to increase your yield, increase the way that you used your land. It could bring you back to the land. I believe that the land now speaks to us. And I don't mean in the sense of great intuition, which every single person that works the land has. I mean, you people are phenomenal in the way that you literally stand on a piece of dirt and you can interpret it. And I don't know how you do it, but you do. But you can do that now through technology to some extent. Again, intellect, whereas what you have is wisdom. what I've witnessed, and I'm hoping is true, and I think what you've witnessed, is a return to the land. We now have kids that want to come back because they're no longer doing the physical work of the land, which is in very many cases what drove them off. But they now can do it in all sorts of ways, whether that's robotics, whether it's engineering, whether it's in soil, it doesn't matter. There are all sorts of opportunities available for them. So they're enjoying being back at the land now. Yes, there are great downsides to it. The land has now become less about a family, more about a corporation. There's been all sorts of things around that notion. I think, obviously, ag now is moving forwards in ways that showcase the way that the world can use human really well, human, machine, and AI particularly well. I think you're able to do things now that were never done before, couldn't be done before, wanted to be done before. You can now manage your land in ways that were impossible before. You can manage them remotely should you wish to, and some farmers do. They're able to understand by satellite where the soil needs fertilization. I worked on a project about 6 years ago where we were able to provide feed to cattle by allowing the cattle to tell us, literally to tell us when they needed it, and to have the supplier of the feed delivered onto the land at the right moment. And that was by understanding what the cows were doing, how they were feeding, what the weather was, what the soil was, by satellites and all kinds of things. I believe that's the way that your world is going. We are not going into a world where we are eating more manufactured foods. That's not true. We're enjoying what we're taking from the land. I think we're in fact embracing it. The other thing that I love is that you are now connected back to the rest of us, and you should never have been disconnected. It always seemed like it was the farmers over there in the distance who were doing something, and we were over here, and we never appreciated you. We didn't understand the work that went into it. We didn't understand what you had to go through in every sense to put that on our table or bring it to us. We now do. We have branded fruit, which is something I advocated for a long time ago. And the purpose was not to brand it. The purpose was to show that humans were behind it. It was to show that this thing was not amorphous. It didn't come from nowhere. It didn't start its life on the supermarket shelf. It started its life inside somebody's head who put their hands and their heart and their soul into manufacturing it for us in whatever sense. So I think the future is still made up of those elements. I think there's huge upside now. Yes, there's a whole lot of issues ahead. There is for every industry, but it is not going to be 100% auto, but it will have a great percentage of that. I think that makes great sense because tractors and other things, machinery can work 24/7 in ways it couldn't do before. That gives us yields, it gives us returns, it gives us all sorts of things you need. But humanity has come back to it, and I think that's where it's headed moving forward as well.
Yeah. Look, if policy is about power, marketing is about trust. You talk a lot about trust. We're going into AI, the content it generates. Can you give us your worldview on this idea of trust in the future with all this new technology and output that's creating for us?
Yeah. Look, trust is, I absolutely agree with you. I did a research piece this year as well, trying to understand what trust was around AI. I interviewed 120 executives in Australia and America. That report's for free at my website if you want to track it down, called Who Decides 2025. So get a copy of that if you want, and you'll see in there. But what I learned from that is that we are willing to, depending on what the level of need is, we are willing to allow artificial intelligence into our lives. Very few of us are willing to allow it to make the final decision. And that's a good thing. That's the way it should always be. So I think that what we need to understand is that these things will be an input device. They should not be an output device. In other words, allow them into our lives, filter them through this thing, our minds, our wisdom, filter them through what we think is required. Remember that we can think in ways that machines never will. When we're thinking about the land, we're thinking about all kinds of things that don't make sense because they're not linear. You know, what will the weather be kind of makes sense, whether our machine will have enough fuel and it makes sense. But there are other things that you're thinking about because you read an article last week about cocoa and you're reading all of a sudden and thinking, well, cocoa's become really popular. Maybe there's going to be more demand for it in 15 years. And these are things that are human. I mean, yes, we can pump into a machine. So again, I'm talking about trust, which is your question. use as an input device. Understand that depending on what it is you want it to do, we trust it to that level. If I go back to my machine that creates chocolates, we trust it to a greater level because invariably it doesn't fail that often. So I can kind of allow it to do its thing and not keep a great eye on it. If we're asking it to operate on a human being on their eye, a robot is a wonderful thing because it's more precise than a human hand. And every ophthalmologist, brain surgeon I've ever spoken to agrees fully with that. But none of them will walk out of the operating room ever while that machine is doing something, while that robot's doing something. They will still stand there and guide it and watch it and stop it. So trust is important. It always has been. It's a human need. We now have to work those same trust habits into machines and into AI.
Where's
What I
that going
think
to leave
about
the instant expert?
Sorry.
Where's that going to leave the instant expert?
Look, we have something that we've called the expert is actually, again, a furphy. We had something called the 10,000 hour expert. There was this belief, and it perhaps was true, that if you'd spent enough hours on something, you had to be the expert for something. And maybe there was a lot of truth in that. That no longer exists because, firstly, nobody has 10,000 hours to dedicate to many things. And by the time you spend 10,000 hours dedicated to something, it's probably has moved on tremendously. That made more sense going back into my 80s and 90s where things were fairly static, yeah? So the first notion of expert, which is 10,000 hours, which is repetitive work, which is I've done this for 20 or 30 years, I don't think holds up as well as it did before. What we're finding now is some of the things you spoke about in the intro, artificial intelligence, for instance, we haven't had 10,000 hours. We haven't had the ability. Sometimes the experts are people that literally have only learnt the thing yesterday, but they are the most tried, the most furthest aheadest. I know that isn't English, of anybody else. I'm not sure what an expert is anymore. I think it comes down to trust. I think it comes down to verification. I think it comes down to what we require from that person. What is it that we want the expertise in? Is it somebody who has spent many, many hours in it? Is it somebody who understands it? Is it somebody who has lived it? I think we need to break it down and really understand what it is that trust is. I mean, what is it? What's the mechanism that we're looking for in that? And then assess whether that's true or not. So what an expert will be, I'm really not sure. I think it is somebody who is wise, and I'm not sure wise is attached to longevity or hours. It could be usage, it could be recency, it could be location, it could be anything.
the thing
What
about
did the punters
trust.
value?
Well, can I just talk about
Oh,
trust
go
for a
ahead.
sec?
Yeah.
My Spotify. I cannot trust my Spotify to not play Nickelback, Spice Girls, or some other just random like piece of shit song. To respect to the fans,
Oh, you love the
they
Spice
love
Girls,
what
man.
I'm just.
What about the Wiggles or the Shark?
Yeah, I get the Baby Shark song too.
You've got a 1
That
and
comes up a
3-year-old, so
lot.
you must be getting those on it too.
But then I'm thinking, well, when we talk about modern AI, okay, let's remove the comparison that's going to be this almighty, like human metaphor. What are we missing from this AI? Where just a simple curated playlist of it's got all my data. It's probably got all my, velocity data from how I'm holding my phone. It's probably got my heart rate, everything pulled into it. Like what are we missing in the algorithm? We're feeding all this data, and it should have a sense of, okay, this is not a Spice Girl fan, so let's not deliver him that. But is there something we're missing in the loop? Is the problem that we're looking at AI through the lens of an engineer, and we're looking at the constraints of AI through the lens of compute capacity? Whereas one of my favorite bands, way back in the 90s, as a metaphor, my favorite bands was Nirvana. So Nirvana came out at the end of the big hair metal 80s, the Hairspray, the leather pants. And these guys came out, they were the antithesis of that. And not only were they antithesis of what the 80s represented, grunge, dirty, unwashed, they're also the antithesis technically. Like they weren't great musicians. The vocals are pitchy. But then what was it about that? It's like there's something imperfect in taste can it be calculated through the eyes of an engineer? And is this what we're trying to do? Is this a mistake we're making with AI? we're looking at it as an engineering problem and not a philosophical / creative problem. What do you think?
So the answer is that we're looking at it to do the wrong thing. What you've actually answered the question. What you want, what I want, what Grayson wants is humanity.
I still
Humanity
listen
is
to the
not
radio
some, but
because it's
yeah,
curated by a human, and I get
but I also
ads,
like
and it
the
sucks. But
serendipity. It's also the serendipity of the radio I enjoy too. The fact that it's not necessarily curated for me, that I might hear something that I otherwise would not have exposed myself to. I think that's important. I think what we need to understand is that AI is, I know I keep saying this in our conversation, it is a damn tool and no more. Why are we looking for it to be, that mythical thing that we rub, Aladdin's lamp, and it changes our lives? It doesn't. And
do
it
you think it can
shouldn't.
be?
No, I don't think it should be. I don't ever want it to be. I don't want it to give it that power over me. I want it to understand me enough that it becomes my digital twin. I love the notion of a digital twin. A digital twin is a thing. It's a thing that is close enough to me that it can begin to act like me in ways that I allow it to do. So I'm going to come to your point, but just on this digital twin, for instance, I think that for medicine, a digital twin is the best thing we could possibly create for each human on this planet, and we need to have it yesterday. Because what it will be able to do is to test medication, to test treatment on a version of me that's close enough to me that is not human, not physical, and won't cause me harm, but I can predict the outcomes of it through this digital device because it knows the way I act, the way I behave. It's got all my heartbeats over the last 50 years because I've been wearing wearable devices. It's got all my x-rays, everything else. So I think a digital twin is a really important understanding of what we will have and what we already have. We just don't call it that because we already have a synthetic version of us. What I'm arguing against what you've just said is the humanity. I don't ever want that thing to be so appreciative that it takes away the joy of me being human. I want to be able to find my own music. I want it to curate to some point. But the joy of, and this is what I don't like about Spotify and others, and I'm guilty because I'll allow it to do it, is it sucks me in. It sucks me in down a road that I can't, that it's just a road, it's a highway and it never stops. I like finding cul-de-sacs. I like stopping at an oasis. And I'm being using metaphors. In Spotify, I like to find a piece of music that I didn't even know I liked, a genre I didn't know I liked by an artist or a band that I didn't even know existed. Now, I know it spits things out at me like that. I get that. But it doesn't spit it out broadly enough. It still takes safety. It's still like playing bowling when you're a child. It puts safety rails up and says, within this safety rail, I'm going to bowl in this direction. I'm not going to go all this way. And I'm mixing my metaphors. I'm sorry, but I think you
No,
get what
I
I'm
understand.
saying.
No, we
So,
talk about looking at our wives' playlists and on Netflix and stuff because it does choose outside that road and that guardrail.
so what I'm suggesting to you is that I don't know why we want AI to take away our humanity. I don't, and most people, for whatever reason, even though they say the opposite, kind of believe it will and it does. We have to use it for its greatness. Get Smart, the show. Some will, some won't know. That wonderful spy show. I love it. I think it was the most incredible thing, and I use one piece of wisdom out of it. There was this one thing that Maxwell Smart would always say whenever something went wrong with chaos, which was the evil side of what thing happened. And he would say, you can always, you have a choice. You can use this for niceness or evilness. And I can't tell you, I can tell you, every client I've ever spoken to, any audience that heard me speak more than once will know that that comes out of my mouth at least once in every conversation. Your choice, use it for niceness or evilness. We can go back to the atom bomb. The atom wasn't split for doing the heinous, terrible things it did. It was created to do most wonderful, joyous things. And same with artificial intelligence. Yes, there is a human need. It's perhaps an evil need, and some people will choose to go down that road where they will use it for nefarious purposes. Does that mean the rest of us shouldn't have access to it because some people will do bad things with it? Does that mean that we shouldn't allow it into our lives? But conversely, we have to understand that it's our choice. Don't look for this thing to take over our lives. It's not our nanny. It's not our parents. It shouldn't be.
You talked about religion earlier, and it's really an information system, perhaps based on an authority beyond human error, i.e., God. There's a good, strong argument. I think Yuval Harari talks about it. This is just another information system. Do you lay awake at night wondering about the future and the problems of control in the background, the guardrails, the way that it's going to deliver the information, the type of information based on its masters? What do you call them, Ben? The tech bros in the background. Does that externally, that problem keep you awake at night at all?
Hear it, I know it, and I think about it, it doesn't keep me awake. And you know why it doesn't? Because not because what you're saying is not true, because there is absolute truth and possibility in it. It's because I have absolute belief in humanity, and that's a naive statement I choose to live by. The humans have brought ourselves forward over all these millenniums. In our heart of hearts, we do not want to destroy ourselves. We might take ourselves to the brink. We might literally look over the precipice, but we are not going to jump as a human race, which is why I believe that we will pull back. We hear too many. I know, I'm not going to even say I think, I know we feed ourselves a steady diet of negativity. And the issue I have is the last 4 or 5 years, that diet has got heavier and heavier in negativity. We just don't allow ourselves to see humanity for its niceness, for its goodness, for its joy, for its possibilities. We're not a bad species. We're really not. And we talk ourselves down so much. And I know that we're not perfect. I know there's hatred between people. I'm not naive. I'm not Pollyanna. I promise you, I'm the most pragmatic person on the, well, that's too big a statement. I'm pragmatic. I understand all these things. I said to you, I've seen the best and worst of humanity, but I've always, always, always seen people really in their own way choose what they think is best for them. Now, others may think it's harmful and may have, in fact, have caused them harm. But in their heart of hearts, they wanted to do what was best. So to your point, I don't lay awake at night thinking of, because at the end of the day, I believe humans are invariably wonderful, joyous, terrific people as a species. Again, don't give me a person by person thing, because we'll be here all by night talking about how that's wrong. But as a species, I believe that we will walk away from the edge. And we also should not colour our world by the way it's been coloured in the last 3 or 4 years. I know we talk about global warming being terrible, and it is, but I naively will tell you that I firmly believe that within 10 years we will not have solved it. We will not have, we will have not remedied the harm that we have done to this planet, but I believe that we will become much better stewards of this planet over the next 10 years than we think we will be. We will have learnt to do things. AI will help us to do things. I believe that humanity will actually uplift itself if we allow it to. We're not going into messianic areas. I mean, that's not a religious statement. I mean, don't believe we're moving into a euphoric state. But if we allow it to, look at COVID. We literally solved COVID in 2 days. 2 days. And by that I mean that it took 2 days for the scientists to think about how we might be able to put a remedy in place. And within 2 days, we had the collective wisdom of the world and all the artificial intelligence and all the machines saying, you know what, guys, maybe that'll work. And that would have taken us years before. They didn't fix it, but they had the thinking around it. And that's
the
why
collective approach. I love
and the
it,
collective approach,
yeah.
exactly.
The one
And
bright
that's
light
why
at
I
the
say
time.
it took 2 days. It took much longer, but it literally only took a couple of days for that road to become the road, mRNA, all the rest of it, for technologies that were lying around to be stitched together, for us to find ways to overcome. And even though COVID was terrible, has changed people's lives, and we can talk about that forever, I think it actually taught us lessons about humanity that we had forgotten. And it's horrible, horrible, horrible stuff that we learned. But I always believe we have to take something good out of the bad. And to me, that's the good that came out of it. And believe me, the other 98% was bad.
No, but I would agree about setting our minds to a collective goal. We managed to achieve something rather unique for
We changed everything. I can tell you, before COVID, literally the day before COVID, nobody was talking about working from home. Nobody was talking about working remotely. Nobody was using Skype, which doesn't exist anymore. All those things were impossible. I'd spoken at your conference. I'd spoken at medical conferences for 15 years about how putting scripts into the hands of digital world was a possibility. Every minister told me they were going to do it. No one ever did it. We did it within 3 days when COVID came around. All of a sudden, we could do things that we thought we never could and never would. So I'm not a fanboy for it, but I'm saying that when humans have a need and a desire, we begin to find really great ways to overcome things. And technology is often the conduit. It's often the thing that we use to allow those possibilities to come to fruition. That's what we have to keep in mind with AI, that we can use it for niceness and not evilness. We have to put rails in place. But let's wonder and ponder more about what greatness we can drive from it than what evilness we can get out of it. Am I sounding too soap opera about it?
No, that was good. Get on the soapbox, I say. I do it regularly, don't I, Ben?
Yeah. Well, this has been like a really interesting chat. One thing we'd like to know at the end, just to really get a sense of like who you are. Well, I've got two questions. I'm going to ask the easy one first, and I'll save the hard one next. What do you do for a hobby?
For a hobby, life. I mean, life. Life is my hobby. So if you're asking me strictly in the sense of a hobby, I love to cook. I always have. To me, that's my escape. I cook most meals, and I have ever since forever and ever. It's my time when my brain switches off. I have my great difficulty in life is switching my brain off. So I find that works really well. The other one I'm about to share with you is a hobby. Everyone will cringe and say that's terrible, and how can you do that to your mind? I love watching mindless television.
What? Sorry,
Uh,
television?
mindless
Doesn't
television.
everyone?
Mindless. What's an example?
Mindless television.
You can say the Kardashians on this podcast. That's okay.
No, don't watch that. It doesn't really matter because I find the more mindless it is, the more my mind switches off, and I love it for that. And it goes to all sorts of places. So I love
really
crime thrillers.
What's really interesting about mindless TV or mindless things is that's where the cogs in your mind are really turning, and that's where the real work happens.
Yep,
when you slow
exactly.
down. So, do you find that
Space
AI
between.
is exacerbating your mind not being able to switch off?
No.
Does it
No,
encourage
in fact,
it?
it's for me, it's doing the exact opposite. I can tell
Okay.
you it's doing the exact opposite, which is why I find it purposeful, because I have found its purpose for me now, not next week, not next year, but now. The things that I used to have to think about, the things that I used to put down on paper, which I still do. So my mind works all the time. I'm constantly my mind looks for signals. Everywhere I'm looking, I'm trying to understand how humanity is changing, how things are people doing things. It just works that way. It's not messy. It just is the way it is. It's not a good mind. I'm not recommending it to anybody else, but my stock in trade is really understanding the world and the way it works. I can now allow my artificial intelligence in all kinds of ways to capture that and to use that to its best intent. So I can actually release some of my pre-thinking and some of my research to these devices in ways that I've never been able to do before, which is what I said to you earlier in the conversation. That I now have an assistant that I've never had. I've got a PA, I've had researchers, I've got all those things, but I now have somebody who I call it a body on purpose by choice. I now have somebody else that I can think these things through. So in fact, for me, it's released my thinking in joyous ways. It really has freed me up a lot to do things I've not been able to do before, to think things I've not been able to do before, to argue in ways I've not been able to argue before.
So, there's a lot of thinking. Where does intuition fit into your process?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. I believe firmly in intuition. Intuition is a sum total of your past experiences and the belief to act on them. That's what intuition is to me, and it colors everything I do. This conversation we've had together is all based on intuition. I believe I've got a reasonable filtering system for what I think needs to be said, but I also trust my intuition. Every time I get up on stage, every time I stand in front of a board, it doesn't matter how large or how small the firm is, my intuition guides me into knowing, and this is not voodoo, this is not, woo stuff, but I know my intuition will tell me what's required in that moment and how best I can say it in that moment. I'll come out and often think I could have said it better or thought something different or said something different. But that's my intuition, Ben. I mean, to me, that is exactly the engine that allows me, after my thinking, after all the things that are inside of here, to just channel it out, to just allow it to be. And I can tell you, even though I don't know in that moment, and when I'm challenged and I want to be by my clients and my audiences, in fact, it's what I want. Why do you say that? Where does that come from? Where's the evidence for that? I will be able to back it up. I will, because my intuition's brought it together into a conversation. And then when you ask me to unpack it, I know that I can unpack it. That's what gives me the freedom to have these conversations always.
How do you like delineate between what's intuition and what's just memory, memorized knowledge?
I don't care.
Okay.
Don't care. Intuition, again, is my willingness to share that information. I mean, it's to know that it's packed in there. It's all about memory recall. But often, I'm sure, I mean, we've all experienced it, that we will often say something, think something that we've not thought or thought about for years. We don't even know where it came from, but it's deep down inside of us somewhere. Many people will stifle that. They won't allow it to come out because it's too unusual a thought. I think intuition says to you that even though I can't put the pieces together for you in a way that makes immediate purpose out of it, it's still mindful and purposeful to share it or to use that to make a decision on. Intuition is what I think, going back to what, and I know we were loose, but I caused it, about what a leader is. But I think part of what leadership is, if we take it from a human aspect, forget the AI and the machines I argued before, from a human aspect, part of that is intuition. Why do we follow a person? Why do we find them to be wise and somebody for whatever reason, for whatever length of time we're willing to follow, listen to, take advice from? It's because our intuition tells us that even though we don't know why or how, that they have something that we would like to have in that moment, or know something in that moment that makes sense to us. That's intuition.
Okay. Last question, and we'll let you get out of here. Oh, unless you had anything to
Yeah.
add, Grayson.
No, I think that was a great, quick, short course in leadership.
Now, feel free not to answer this. It's personal.
It's personal.
What does the meaning of life mean to you?
I have thought about this, I think, every minute, every moment. I think about anything. I don't believe there is a meaning in life. I think there's a purpose in life. I don't think there's a meaning in life. I think we're
What's the
trying to
difference?
understand something. I think that we're trying to look, for me, I shouldn't say we. For me, I have tried to understand what the meaning in life is. Yeah. So on my tombstone, there will be something that's meaningful, and it'll be a legacy. I just don't believe that there is. I think there's a purpose in life. I don't mean that we've been put on this planet to do something. I mean, some people do, and I think that there's joy in that, and I respect that, and I welcome that from them. But a purpose in life means that there is something inside of me that's itching to get out. There's something that, however, whatever it's been put there, needs to be shown or shared. And that doesn't mean that I think that's not from an arrogant viewpoint where I think that's good. It's just from a viewpoint where if I don't do it, I'll explode. Because that really is what the work I do is. If I didn't have these conversations, if I didn't do my writing, if I didn't have these thoughts, I think I would metaphorically explode. They're just inside of me. They are, and they have to come out in some way. And I have been deliberate, again, choose forward. I have manufactured a life that's allowed me to do that. I have paid dearly for this life, but that's not melodramatic. It's dearly because I have made choices all the way through about how I want my life to be, how I want my interactions with my children to be. I am not here for a moment saying I did it well, but I'm saying I'm willing to stand up and say I made that choice, good or bad, I made that choice. And my purpose in life was to make those choices and to live my life that way. It just doesn't make sense. I don't work a 9 to 5 life. I never have. I don't work weekends. I kind of come and go as I want. I do all these things. That's my purpose because it just fulfills me. So again, I haven't given you a straight answer, but it's the best I can do because I don't have a meaning for life, but I think I do have a purpose for life.
Are they
Don't
the
look
same thing?
convinced. Tell me more.
Oh no, I'm not trying to tell you what your meaning or purpose
No,
is.
no. I mean, tell me. Look, let's
I
talk
think
more
it's
about it.
I think it's such a fascinating. These simple questions are so fascinating because when you try to unpack
Yeah.
them, they're not as simple. But I think it's
No.
a part of the life itself as stepping through. Okay, what does meaning? I think from what I'm hearing from you is you've meaning to you, and this is just me, not telling you what it is, but this is how I say it.
No.
Is that meaning for you is feeling what your purpose is and then going out there and spreading it and helping people. But by asking the question, what is the meaning of my life? You've said that it doesn't have meaning intrinsically, it has purpose, which sort of derives function. But I think that's what you found. And now, if I ask that question, it's going to be different to yours, as it should be, because we're different people with different experiences and different goals. So perhaps that is it. asking the question is the most important part. What does it mean to me? Because if you don't ever ask it, you're never ever gonna wonder, or even, you only get answers from questions that are asked, and the answers don't accidentally come. Yeah, that's why I'm so curious with this question, especially with people around technology, because a lot of people talk about the technical aspects and the specifications, and that's fun to talk about too. Then what I think is really interesting is sort of cutting between all those layers of technical veneer and again to the core and just seeing what's there. And yeah, so
And that's why technology, again, just rounding that bit up, that's why I can talk about technology. I go into corporations. I talk about how it's purposeful, useful, where we should be using, where humans can be used. I do all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, the conversation you and I have had and the conversation I have in my life is about how humans use it. That's the most important thing we can do. I know I've brabbed on about choose forward. To your last comment, by doing what you suggest, and I think it is what we should be doing, by asking the question, we are choosing forward. It's the most deliberate thing we can do. I mean, it's the most deliberate thing we can do for ourselves. And by doing that for ourselves, we in fact do it for others. And I have seen that time and time again. I can tell you with people that I have had the pleasure of being with at the lowest parts of their lives. And I don't mean that in a perverse way, but it's a great honor to be with somebody when they are at the lowest moment of their life and when they really require somebody else to be there for them and with them. That once you can imbue them with a sense of that they have some ability to honor their life, to choose forward, to make a choice, it might be difficult, it often is, that their world begins to change for them. It's really when they don't see a path in that. It's when they don't question the meaning of life. It's when they don't look for their purpose that we tend to find people really implode and don't do well. That's why I think it's so important. And technology, when it's used for that purpose, when it's used for the purpose of advancement for humans, I think it's incredible. And that's the way that we should be seeing it. And yes, all the other conversations we have are important, and we should be mindful about where we use it, and we should be mindful about who uses what the rest of it is. But that doesn't mean we should put it back in a box, because it ain't going there. It just ain't going there. So let's figure out how we can make this world a much better place with the things that are in it now, rather than trying to get rid of stuff like artificial intelligence and computers and all this other stuff. It just doesn't make sense. Let's learn to coexist and use it wisely as a tool. It's a great tool if we allow it to be. And yes, we have to be in charge. And yes, we have to choose forward, again, for the 50th time in this conversation.
Wise words. Morris, where can people find you?
Well, here mostly. So if you want to look online, it's Morris Misel, MORRIS, MISEL.com, Morris Misel, or in any of the socials.